Squeeze. Now, in the 1970s and early 80s, Squeeze enjoyed a reputation as being the best pub rock band in the country, and they had a succession of hits such as Pulling Muscles from a Shell, Up the Junction, and Cool for Cats. Now, all this led to you playing in front of 20,000 people in Madison Square Gardens in 1982, and yet, by the end of this year, Squeeze had split up. What was the reason for this split?
I think basically we were all just a bit sort of fed up with it. It sounds incredible for me to think about it in that way now, but we'd done about 5 years of work, constantly touring and making albums. I think I'd also read too many NMEs which told me that touring was miserable, and I began to believe it. Yeah. But I mean, certainly, you know, what we really needed was a big break. After that, after we split up, I spent about a year sitting at home.
But why did you sort of sidestep stardom when it was staring you in the face? I mean, that's what most bands crave.
That's right. I mean, I would have loved it to have happened for the band at that time, but I think it was a bit, it took a bit too long for us to get to the stage where we wanted to be, and by the time we got there, as a band, we weren't as good as we had been before, you know. So it's like the fun had gone out of it, and that was why we had to go. You know.
So when the split arose, did this give you a chance to do things perhaps that you've been, you know, nurturing close to your heart?
Well, yes, like sitting around at home for a while. That was really close to my heart. So we did that for a while. I think basically what I needed to do, I think that being in a band is a bit like living in a bubble, in a way that you can live in a very sort of protected environment. And I've been in the band since I was, 15.
So it gave you breathing space?
It gave me a lot of breathing space.
But of the band, you and Chris Difford write most of the material and sing most of it. Yeah. And in this sort of time off, you made an album together which had limited success. What was missing from that?
Limited success is a very kind phrase, actually. a bit of a disaster, that one. I don't know, I think we just wanted to do, something different, but we weren't quite sure what it was. And we felt, I think at that time, we felt sort of quite a loyalty to Squeeze, as it had been. Didn't want it to sound like that, but really didn't, we didn't know what else we wanted to sound like.
Without sort of being exaggerated, you were Squeeze.
No, we were the people who wrote the songs for Squeeze, but Squeeze always was, and now is again, a band. We write the songs and then the band sort of arrange and add their own personality to them. That's why it is a band. It's not just a sort of collection of people who back us up.
Yeah. You reformed in 1985. What had happened in those 3 years, or what had changed that made Squeeze possible again?
I think we all calmed down a bit, and I think the other thing is that I would never have thought that it would have been a good idea. In fact, I would have thought it would have been a dreadful idea to get the band back together again. Because to me, it would seem like, well, they've gone off and had their career and that's been a bit of a failure, so they think, have a bit of a panic and get Squeeze back together again. I mean, that is how I read it.
Were you under pressure from record companies or anything like that?
No, all that had stopped. They wanted us to keep the name Squeeze initially, and we said, well, no, that's a dreadful idea. So that had gone away. But what happened is that I booked a sort of charity gig in a pub for myself, and forgotten all about it, and 3 days beforehand looked in my diary and found out I had this gig to do. And so I panicked and called up everybody in Squeeze and to ask if they'd help me out for this gig, and we didn't rehearse or anything, we just played this gig. And it was such brilliant fun that we all thought, this is silly. Why don't we get back together?
So it's a bit like sort of starting up an old relationship. Sort of, it's easy and it's.
Yes, it was easy. It was easy and comfortable. There was that sort of hesitancy at first about, whether it would be the right thing to do. But then when we played, it just all made sense.
And did this bring you all back together? Did that sort of make you realise there's something you'd started back there that you wanted to continue on?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I actually think the band now is a lot better than it used to be. We're all sort of a lot more comfortable with each other. We don't sort of row as much, no fists through dressing room doors and all that sort of stuff. Yes, I've matured quite a lot, actually.
Do you respond now more to the Squeeze that played Madison Square Gardens or the Squeeze that, say, played the pubs in South London?
Well, both, because this year we're doing both. We're playing Madison Square Gardens next month, and that's something I really look forward to. But I also really like playing small venues. We did the Marquee last month. I think we're a sort of band that can adapt to those different situations, and I don't think we're fazed by it, which is, a great help. Yeah.
So you're going to be going back into London pubs, but the feel of the music be different from the concert hall to the pub?
No, not really. I mean, I think I personally think it's a bit of a lie that you have to change the way you are to adapt into different circumstances. I used to think, you used to have to make bigger gestures if you're playing in huge places, but I don't think that's the case at all. I think the way to get across to people is to just be yourself and to be honest about the way you are, and that can get across to 200 or 20,000 people.
So your new album, Babylon and On, you've had one hit already with Hourglass. Madison Square Gardens is back on the itinerary then?
Yeah, it seems to be. Yeah, it's all going really well for us at the moment. It's quite heartening, really.
Yeah, is it much more? Do you find things much more relaxing? Your music flows much easier, less sort of aggro.
It's. I think the band is generally in a sort of better state than it ever was. For some reason, I can't work out why. I think perhaps Jules is happier having his sort of dual career in TV and in the band, whereas before, for instance, I think he felt a bit frustrated with not being more to the fore in the band.
Well, that's good to hear that you're happy and back together again. Thanks a lot for coming in tonight, Glenn. We're now going to take a look at the second release of the album Babylon and On. It's called Trust Me to Open My Mouth.